Okay, that's a lot of info. Why don't we just try some problems together? So Jeff Olson from Upper Line Code graciously allowed me to use some of the problems that he's written that I've expanded on a little bit. And we're going to go ahead and solve them together. So the first problem here is we have this list, which is a list of strings of all of Alex's favorite foods. Actually, this problem already used the name Alex, before I borrowed it here. So I do like a lot of these foods, but this wasn't written specifically about me. And so for our problem, we want to print out a statement that says, I really love blank for each of the values in our list. Well, whenever you hear this for each, that's a good sign that we want to use a for loop. And that we want to use this for something in something construction, for each. And here, the variable name that would make sense is food, because all of these are foods. And the thing we want to iterate over is favorite foods. So for food and favorite foods, we're going to print out, I really love, and then the food. Okay, why don't we run this and see what happens? Python 3 main.py. Great. I'll move my head here so you can see a little better. It says, I really love sushi. I really love pizza. I really love salmon. Really love all of these foods. Now for our second problem, we're going to keep working with this list, and we're going to ask the user for a food. So why don't we just do that first? We know how to ask a user for something. User food equals input to food. And then what do we do with this food? We want to check whether the list contains that food. And if it does, remove that food from the list. So how do we check if a list contains something? We do if user food is in favorite foods. So this will this expression will evaluate to true if this user food string is found as one of the elements in the list, and false if it's not. So if user food in favorite foods pass, well, what do we want to do? If it's found, then we want to remove it from the list. And how do we do that? I'm going to do favorite foods dot remove, and we tell it what to remove. So this will remove the very first occurrence. If there are duplicates, later occurrences of this item stay. So we do user food and print out. Just to see whether this worked, let's print out the favorite foods after. Okay, we'll go ahead and run our code here. So enter food. Let's say we enter sushi. Where the list that gets printed here doesn't have sushi in it anymore. See how in here the list originally had sushi, but now it doesn't anymore. Whereas if I run this again and I enter, I don't know, soba, that doesn't do anything to the list because that food does not exist in my list. And finally, let's work with some numbers here. So we have this massive list of numbers. Iterate over the list and print out only the numbers less than 100. Okay, so how would we do that? Well, again, iterating over a list sounds a lot like a for each statement. So for num in many numbers. And now inside of the body, each time the body gets executed, it'll be a new value from our list. So we want to print the number, but we don't always want to print the number. Our problem says we want to print only if the number is less than 100. So first we're going to check that. If num is less than 100, we will print the number. Well, let's try running this. Okay, yeah, so this printed only numbers less than 100. And finally, we'll do the last problem here, which is to print out the average of this list. So the average is the sum divided by the number of items. So why don't we do that? So the total equals sum of many numbers. The count is equal to the length of many numbers. So then the average must be the total divided by the count. And we'll just print that average. whoops, choose my changes here. 3 main.py. So we get that the average is 177. I, of course, have no way to kind of verify that by, by hand. I don't want to, but that is what our program here computes.